Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Roger Brown. I'm coming to you live from the campus of Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. Today we'll participate together in a very full and I hope valuable 90-minute video conference. Let me quickly preview what we're going to do using our ITI 3D logo. Let's take the T first, telecommunications. We'll talk about television, satellites, microwave systems, fiber optics. We'll help you understand the value of these and other technologies in your educational programs. Next, the 3Ds. The first is for definition. Instructional designer Mike Albright will be defining a lot of space-age terms used when people talk about distance learning today. The second D is for demonstration. We've prepared short videos on innovative telecommunication programs at several community colleges and public school sites, and will investigate the developing statewide telecommunications system. The third D stands for discussion. The representatives of each of these programs are with us to explain how their systems function. The last I stands for Iowa, but we know that many of you are viewing from all across the country, and we welcome your participation. Anyone who's watching, any of you can call us on an 800 line. Here's our number, 1-800-747-5505. That's 1-800-747-5505. Call us anytime during the program, and we'll take the last few minutes to answer as many calls as we can. Finally, that first I, maybe the most exciting concept of all, interactive telecommunications. That's telecommunication between many learners and teachers over distance. To demonstrate, we're going to say hello to our studio audience. They're in the Iowa Public Television Studios in Johnston. They come to us via microwave link. Our host is Tim Berry. Good morning, Tim.
Greetings, Roger. We're happy to be here. We're here at Studio 3, the beautiful theater at Iowa Public Television located in Johnston, Iowa. For our friends outside of the state of Iowa, that's just a little bit above Des Moines. Andy Warhol says that everybody's got an opportunity to be famous for about 15 minutes in their life. We're going to come back here later on and see who gets the opportunity to be famous with some questions and answers here. We're happy to be on the program and glad you folks are with us. Back to you, Roger.
Tim, thanks very much, and we're glad to have you. One of our presenters today is in Las Cruces, New Mexico. We're having a little difficulty with the satellite feed, but we hope to be able to have that a little bit later in the program, and we'll be interacting with Dr. Tom Sears. So let's begin. First, we'd like to bring some comments from one of many people you'll be hearing from during the program who's vitally interested in interactive telecommunications in Iowa.
The state of Iowa is proud of its long tradition as a leader in educational innovation. Iowans expect high quality from their schools, and they support new ideas that contribute to excellence. The use of interactive telecommunications offers a more diversified curriculum to the children of the state and access to higher quality courses and enrichment programs. The Iowa Plan for Telecommunications is the official process by which the schools of the state will be linked together. I urge you to use this plan and develop procedures for the effective use of this new form of educational technology. Your input during this teleconference will help identify how interactive television can allow Iowa to remain at the forefront of the nation's educational systems.
You know, exciting things are happening in Iowa in the way of educational telecommunications. In just a few minutes, we'll be talking with representatives of 5 of the most interesting delivery systems around the state. Since some of you may have had limited exposure to some of these technologies, we thought it might be appropriate as part of this teleconference to bring you a short description of each of these delivery systems. Here to provide that overview is Mike Albright. He's coordinator for instructional development in the Media Resources Center at Iowa State University. Mike?
Thank you, Roger. Before I begin, I'd like to emphasize that we know that what we're going to talk about here is old stuff to many of you. But since our audience today certainly consists of folks with different levels of knowledge about telecommunications technologies, we thought that a short introduction might be helpful for some of our viewers who might not be too sure about some of these terms. The first one that we need to cover is this idea of educational telecommunications in the first place. Telecommunications means different things to different people. And it's true that the term includes a wide range of activities, from long-distance telephone services to data communications networks, to teleconferencing via a satellite-based distribution system, to the delivery of instructional services by television or computer, to heaven knows what else. If you look at the word telecommunications, it simply means to communicate over a distance. And although I suppose that could include the postal service or carrier pigeon or smoke signals, the term normally implies that some kind of electronic technology is involved, such as television or telephone or computers. And so when we put the adjective educational in front of the noun telecommunications, we're simply describing that subcategory of telecommunications in which instruction-related information is provided via some electronic means to learners who are geographically separated from the source of the transmission, whether across the campus or across the country. So let's start out by looking at the three technologies that will form the primary delivery system for the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network. And these are fiber optics, microwave, and instructional television fixed service, or ITFS. Now, the term fiber optics has been around for about 30 years, but fiber has only recently become a viable option in the telecommunications industry. And now it's widely used for long-distance telephone services and many other kinds of applications. Now, our old coaxial cable, or coax, used copper wire and transmitted electronic signals. But fiber optic cable is made from glass, and it transmits optical, or light energy. And this gives us some very important advantages. Now, for one thing, the quality of the transmission is vastly improved. Somebody once calculated that if our eyesight could pass through ocean water as clearly as an optical signal passes through glass fiber, we'd be able to see the bottom of the ocean from any point on the ocean surface. And I think if you think about that, that's pretty impressive. Another advantage of fiber is that the signal can be transmitted a much greater distance before it needs to be amplified. And since fiber transmits optical energy, the signal can't be affected by any type of electromagnetic interference. And so it's easy to see why the primary trunk lines in the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network are going to be fiber. Now, in just a few minutes, we're going to hear about another exciting application of fiber optic technology by Des Moines area public schools. Iowa Public Television is going to be the hub of the IETN network, and fiber optic lines will be used to provide two-way transmission between the Iowa Public Television facilities at Johnston and the 14 communities that have been designated as network switching locations. Now, when the system is completed, the technologies that will be used to expand the system down to the county level will be microwave and instructional television fixed service. And we'll be hearing a lot more about this from Linda Schatz in just a few minutes. Microwave and ITFS are similar in a number of ways. First of all, they both transmit audio and video signals over the air without the need for any type of cable interconnection between transmit and receive sites. They both use frequencies that require special receiving equipment, so they can't be picked up on your TV set at home. And they both can provide two-way communications if the receive sites are also equipped with transmit capability, as they will be in about 120 local communities around Iowa. Now, other locations will receive one-way audio and video and then use telephone lines for the return audio. Now, I might add that it's very important to have this return audio capability so that we can have the same degree of interactivity among students and instructors that we'd have in a normal face-to-face classroom. Now, the most important difference between microwave and ITFS, other than the frequency they use, is that microwave is a point-to-point system, while ITFS is a point-to-multipoint. Now, what that means is that a microwave transmitter focuses on a specific reception site, and the signal cannot be received clearly at locations outside the direct line of the microwave transmission. Now, ITFS, on the other hand, broadcasts its signal just like a television station, and anyone with the proper receiving equipment within the coverage area can pick up the transmissions. And this is why ITFS is a preferable distribution medium in locations with multiple receiving sites located within about a 20-mile radius of the transmitter. Another technology that has seen dramatic growth in the past 4 or 5 years is the use of communication satellites for delivering educational programming. Now, at the K-12 level, for example, Tie-In is a private satellite network that provides over 140 hours of instructional programming per week to more than 300 schools in 28 states, including 13 receive sites here in the state of Iowa. A similar service is provided by Oklahoma State University's Arts and Sciences Teleconferencing Service, the ASTS. And now the federal government has funded almost $20 million for the Star Schools program to provide high school level courses by satellite to rural school districts all over the country. Star Schools has 4 pilot projects going this fiscal year. At the post-secondary level, we know that over 40 colleges and universities have offered their own courses by satellite to off-campus students for academic credit at both graduate and undergraduate levels. Really, if you think about it, satellite-based instruction is a fairly simple concept. A satellite is nothing more than a relay station in space. And whatever programming we want to send out to the target audience, whether video, audio, data, or some combination thereof, is sent to the satellite by a special transmitter called an uplink. And the satellite itself carries a set of mechanisms called transponders, each of which has the capability of receiving the signal from the uplink, amplifying it, converting it to a different frequency so that it doesn't interfere with the incoming signal, and then transmitting it back to Earth. The signal is then received by the ubiquitous dishes that we call downlinks and routed by fiber or coaxial cable to the audience's TV sets. Now, I might add that there are 2 satellite frequency bands that are used by the educational and business communities, the C-band and the KU band, and you might hear these terms from time to time. Now, the satellites that we use are located over the equator at an altitude of about 22,000 miles in an orbit that is synchronous with the rotation of the Earth, and so they appear, as you look at them, to be stationary in the sky. Now, the advantage of using a geosynchronous satellite is that from that altitude, a satellite can see about 42% of the Earth's surface, and depending upon the configuration of the transponder's transmitter, we have the potential of reaching a very large audience spread out over a huge geographical area. For example, most of the audience for our program today is located here in Iowa. But we know that we have viewers in Texas, New Mexico, Virginia, Massachusetts, California, Florida, and please forgive me if I've missed somebody. Anyway, the main disadvantage of satellites is that it costs between $300 and $1,000 per hour to transmit programming by satellite, and that does not include production expenses. So you can see that it's very expensive to deliver an ongoing program, such as a college or high school course, via satellite. And you have to have a large number of receiving sites sharing the costs to make the program economically viable. Now, I just want to mention one other technology, and that is the use of community cable television systems. Quite often, educational channels are included in cable franchise agreements, and schools and colleges can use these to deliver instruction and other types of programming throughout their local communities. For example, one of the Heritage Cablevision channels in Des Moines is shared by Drake University, Grandview College, and the Des Moines Area Community College. And Morningside College actively programs a channel on the Siouxland cable system in Sioux City. Well, what we'd like to do right now is to give you a little demonstration of how some of these technologies that we've talked about this morning can be linked together. So I'll turn it back over to Roger.
Thanks very much, Mike. One of the things that happens in interactive video and telecommunications and satellites is that there are glitches, and when you get involved with something like that, you'll find that out. One of our glitches is that one of our presenters today, Dr. Tom Sears in New Mexico, is not with us yet. We're still hoping to have him either on satellite or by telephone, and we'll go to him when we do. Meanwhile, we have a very, very exciting group of folks with us, our panel. I'd like to introduce them if I could. First of all, Dr. Bob Hardman. Bob is director of the Educational Media Center and professor of instructional technology at the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls. Bob has pioneered the development of training workshops for traditional classroom teachers to become accomplished teachers on TV. By the way, as I introduce folks, you'll have a chance to see in just a minute the work that they're doing on their sites. Gary Federn is director of the Television Center for Iowa Lakes Community College in Esterville. The Iowa Lakes program of interactive television serves a 5-county area, and Gary brings to our panel an excellent model of cooperation between the public schools, the area education agency, and the college. Gary? Kathleen Steinhardt is manager of credit programs for the College of Continuing Education here at Iowa State University in Ames. Kathleen is an articulate spokesperson for ISU's growing involvement in all manner of interactive telecommunications. Dave Bunting is Associate Dean of Educational Services at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. The Kirkwood program features 7 microwave-linked sites equipped for two-way interactive audio and video and represents Iowa's most extensive experience in this technology. Dave and the Kirkwood telecommunications staff are currently programming over 30 high school and college interactive courses. Judy Richardson is with us. Dr. Richardson is supervisor of vocational education and coordinator of technology for the Des Moines Public Schools. The district has recently installed an interactive fiber optic system linking all 5 Des Moines high schools and the Urbandale High School with the central campus and administrative headquarters in downtown Des Moines. And again, she'll be describing that, or helping us describe that in just a couple of moments. And Linda Schatz is with us. Linda is Director of Narrowcasting Services for Iowa Public Television. She's identified with the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Plan, about which we've heard so much this spring, and for which the Iowa legislature has recently appropriated some $12 million. Now that I've introduced everyone, and we are almost ready to take a look at what's happening at each of those sites, I think we are able to talk with Dr. Tom Sears. And let's find out if we can. We're doing it by telephone, I think. Dr. Sears, are you hearing us in Las Cruces?
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Sears, are you hearing us there in Las Cruces?
Hello?
Okay, I think we'll have him stand by for a minute, and let's take some time to look at one of our very exciting videos, if we may, and I'll tell our director that we'll do that. And our first video today is brought to us by Iowa Public Television. Linda Schatz is with us. Linda, this is an exciting concept and something that we're looking forward to seeing and looking forward to learning a lot more about in the next few years. This is really something that's it's coming, and tell me a little bit about what you'd like to show us.
The videotape that you'll see today gives an overview of the concepts underlying the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network, and it also includes a look at the system design.
Okay, let's take a look, if we may, then, at that videotape and take a look at the Iowa system.
What will the future of education be like, and how will the ever-changing educational needs of Iowans be met? Are computers the answer? Satellite communications? Will we be able to ingest our knowledge with our breakfast in the morning? Or maybe even electronically transmit it directly into the brain? Will conditions force us to let machines teach our children in a future that is cold, impersonal, and dehumanizing? Hello, I'm Morgan Halgren. The fact is, some of those items mentioned do represent extreme answers to many of the problems faced by education today, particularly limited resources, both financial and in the area of facilities, problems that have resulted in a disparity in the types and varieties of educational services offered to Iowa communities. And please note that when we say communities, we mean just that. A rapidly changing world has forced us to realize that learning never ends. Retraining or continuing education for adults is already a simple fact of life. And yet much of Iowa's population is prohibited or at least discouraged from improving their lives merely because the location of educational resources is too far away and responsibilities to job and family make it impossible to go away to school. So what's the answer? When the experts and people like you, concerned about the future of education, began to look at some technological ways to improve the variety and accessibility of educational resources in Iowa, they realized that some form of telecommunications would have to be employed. And they further realized that whatever system they designed, it would have to be interactive. Students and instructors would have to be able to communicate with each other in real time. That is, talk with one another just as if they were right there in the same classroom. But would such a system actually work? The answer was already at hand. Community colleges in Iowa are mandated by law to serve the region they are located in, not just their hometown. In the beginning, they did this by acquiring classroom space in outlying communities and having their instructors drive there from campus. It wasn't long before interactive telecommunications was identified as a common-sense alternative. Kirkwood Community College was the first regional interactive telecommunications system in Iowa. Construction of the Kirkwood system began in the late 70s, and over the years, other regional systems have developed around the state. Today, in addition to the Kirkwood system, there are several other telecommunications systems in place, and still growing. During the time these systems have been in place, interactive telelearning has been accepted by both educators and students as a viable and valuable alternative that can be used in a constantly growing variety of ways. Based upon this experience and a lot of investigative study, the Iowa legislature passed a bill in 1987 making Iowa Public Television the coordinating body for a proposed telecommunications system called the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network, a system that would link together all of the local and regional systems into one statewide network. This network could then be linked to national and international telecommunications facilities. This coordination would be carried out by Iowa Public Television, with the advice and input of the Narrowcast Advisory Committee, a committee made up of system users that would actually be responsible for the operation of the IETN system. It's important to stress that Iowa Public Television's role is truly that of coordinator. In other words, coordinating the interconnection of those systems around the state that already exist and any new construction, as well as helping those regions to meet their educational needs through telecommunications. Decisions regarding actual system use will remain in the hands of the various communities who will be using the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network. Now let's take a quick look at the IETN system as it has been proposed. The network begins with regional systems placed strategically around the state. These systems would be composed of duplex links established between each regional center and a number of nearby communities. Basically, duplex means two-way transmission and would involve the use of such technologies as microwave or fiber optics. As mentioned earlier, some of these regional systems are already in place, as represented by the solid lines. Proposed additional duplex links are represented by the dotted lines. An important segment of each regional system involves what is called ITFS, or Instructional Television Fixed Service. This makes statewide coverage possible. The ITFS is symbolized by the colored circles appearing on the map. These are simply television broadcast transmitters that are limited to a range of approximately 20 miles in radius. This system would allow video and audio distribution from the origination site with audio response from the receive sites. The backbone links, represented here by the solid blue lines, connect the 15 regional areas of the state, as well as the 3 regent universities, with fiber optics capable of carrying multiple live interactive communications simultaneously. The hub of this system would be located north of Des Moines at the Iowa Public Television Network Center. As you can see, the entire state will have equal access to telecommunications resources once the system is completed. And then it becomes a relatively simple matter to link any part of Iowa to national and international telecommunications facilities through Iowa's 3 educational uplinks at Iowa State University, the University of Iowa, and Iowa Public Television. At the same time, vast resources of information can be received at the more than 80 downlink sites at Iowa State University's extension locations, as well as other downlink sites in the state. The information received via satellite at the regional centers can also be distributed to other communities over the IETN system. Perhaps we should say a word about what is meant by telecommunications. Even though we've been stressing the educational merits of this system, the fact is that the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network will have a variety of potential uses. And while all of the uses have an educational or informational element, some of them might be quite different from the traditional courses offered via telecommunications. This system could be used for teachers' meetings, data transmission, continuing education, and retraining for business and industry, and even town meetings, conceivably all happening simultaneously. And it needs to be pointed out that, in fact, it's almost certain that there will be an infinite number of other uses that haven't even been thought of yet. And that's just fine, because the IETN system is more than capable of expanding right along with Iowa's growing educational telecommunications needs. Before we move on, perhaps it would be helpful to give you a hypothetical example of how the system might be used. Imagine there's a small engineering firm in the southwest Iowa town of Sidney, whose employees would greatly benefit from a computer science course taught by a professor at the University of Iowa. Video and audio signals from the professor's classroom in Iowa City travel via fiber optics to the IETN Control Center near Des Moines, and then on to Council Bluffs. From there, signals are sent to a specially equipped classroom in Sidney. If the employees have a question for the professor, the process is reversed. But keep in mind that the links between Iowa City and Sidney are occurring simultaneously, similar to a telephone conversation, with the added benefit of the parties being able to see as well as hear one another. Let's take this a little further and say that a group of teachers in Hampton, Iowa, having just heard about an exciting teaching strategy recommended by an education professor at the University of Northern Iowa, has arranged an interactive session with this professor scheduled to occur at the same time as the U of I computer science course. Once again, a link is created through the system between Cedar Falls and Hampton. Because of the system design, simultaneous uses of the backbone can occur. The two courses in Hampton and Sidney wouldn't even be aware of one another. Let's imagine further that teachers in some of the communities around Hampton become aware of the course being sent from UNI, and they decide they might benefit from it as well. It's very easy at this point to have the course broadcast on Hampton's ITFS transmitter. That means that towns within range, about a 20-mile radius around Hampton, would pick up the course through video and audio connections from UNI, with audio response to the UNI origination site. In fact, the IETN system is being designed to accommodate a large number of simultaneous uses. In addition to those two courses occurring on our hypothetical day, there would almost certainly be a number of other educational interactive programs moving around the state and within individual regions. Don't be concerned if portions of our explanation have thus far seemed a bit bewildering. Although the types of technologies and the method of their operation are important, all the participants in this project agree that the technology should be as transparent and unobtrusive as possible and must never be allowed to disrupt the primary goal: to provide an effective and efficient telecommunications system that meets the educational needs of Iowa's citizens. It's important to remember that while the entire state will be linked to the world when the IETN system is completed, the way the system is used will be up to the state's local districts. In this way, the IETN system becomes just one more tool for educating Iowans. The intent of the system is to complement and supplement a job that Iowa has always done very well. Since the days of the one-room schoolhouse, Iowa's government and her people have dedicated themselves to providing the best of educational opportunities. Iowa Public Television is proud to take part in continuing that tradition through the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network. I'm Morgan Halgren. Thanks for watching.
And thank you, Morgan. Remember when Mike Albright was with us, he mentioned a little demonstration of interaction. Well, we're fortunate to be able to do that now as we talk live with Dr. Tom Sears. He's in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Are you receiving us okay there, Tom?
Yes, Roger. Welcome to the New Mexico State University teleclassroom in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Our weather is 80 degrees, and we'll be pushing 100 before the day is over.
Very good, Tom. You can keep the 100 degrees down there in Las Cruces. We'll take what we've got up here in Iowa, which is a nice, cool morning. We experience a little bit of delay between our signals, Tom, and if you would take just a moment to explain why that is.
Sure, Roger. I prepared a little graphic that will explain the number of hops that our signal must take to reach you in Ames State. If you'd bring up the graphic, please. I'm broadcasting from the New Mexico State University teleclassroom through hardwire to our public television station, approximately 220 miles to the University of New Mexico, where it's set up to West Star 4 and back to your downlink dish at Iowa State University, a distance of about 22,000 miles.
Very good, Tom. You're in a classroom setting there. That's obvious, and you've got some beautiful graphics to go with that. Tell us a little bit about your classroom facility there. How is that working? How'd you get it set up?
Well, our teleclassroom in Milton Hall on our main campus is a traditional teleclassroom. We have a overhead camera that will pick up anything that I write or any graphics that I might use. Our control booth is approximately 300 feet away from where I'm sitting now, and all of our materials are remotely controlled. Our audio signals are picked up in the ceiling, and I'm sitting at a special desk that has a television set as well as our audio console.
That's fantastic, Tom. What a terrific facility that you have. What are you using it for? What sorts of instructional situations do you use it in?
Well, we have three major uses, Roger. We are primarily broadcasting our signal via fiber optic line and microwave to the University of New Mexico for shared courses. We're also sending our signal to the military bases at Kirtland Air Force Base, Cannon Air Force Base, Holloman Air Force Base, the Air Force Weapons Lab, where they not only receive a live interactive signal, but they're also receiving videotapes for package courses.
Very good. I understand you're going to be involved in Iowa this summer. I think it's on the 17th of July, and going to be involved in some classes here. Tell us a little bit about your participation.
Well, we hope to be out there on the 17th for several days to work with your faculty and people throughout the state to deal with techniques of teaching on a typical teleclassroom.
Very good. I want to ask our folks here in the studio here very quickly, Tom. At one point we thought we might see if we could get a question from the folks in Des Moines for you. Let me look at our control booth and see if we can. Yes, we can. Okay, we're going to do a little switching back and forth here. And let's see if Tim Berry is there. Tim?
We're here. Go ahead. We've got a question all ready to go for you, Roger.
Okay, very good. Tim, you ask, I think you can ask directly that question to Tom Sears.
Go ahead, Al.
Dr. Sears, this is Al Kent from Iowa State University. I'd like to know whether the state of Mexico has a telecommunications network, or if you don't, does it plan to establish one?
Al, during this past year, the state of New Mexico has studied a statewide system similar to that you're proposing in Iowa. It went to our legislature. It was recommended to set up a commission to study the problem. Because of fiscal constraints, our governor saw fit to veto this, but we've been encouraged to resubmit to the legislature this January. And hopefully in the next several years, we'll see a backbone system similar to yours.
Very good, and we thank you for being involved, Tom. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Roger.
Tom Sears, who's been coming to us live via satellite from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Now we are going to return to our panel, and I think our next presenter is Bob Hardman, who's with us this morning. Bob, tell us a little bit about what we are going to see.
Well, Roger, as you know, the University of Northern Iowa has had a long history of strong programs, both undergraduate and graduate programs, in teacher education. And so beginning last summer, in partnership with Kirkwood Community College, we offered our first course or workshop preparing teachers to teach using interactive instructional television.
Very good, Bob. Let's take a look, if we can, at that system.
Well, I think that, like any technology, I think that we need to look at what the need happens to be. And based upon the need, we select the technology which best meets that need. So to imagine that all of our classes are going to be taught that way in the future, I just don't think is realistic at all. I think we use the technology when it serves a need that we might have. In the case of education, we're talking about not only the teacher being able to present to the students, but the students also being able to interact with the teacher. Now that's done really in one of two ways. Either it is done with two-way video and two-way audio, where the teacher can see the students out at various sites or in various classrooms. Certainly the students can also see the teacher, but then we also have two-way audio. The second type of system is one-way video. The students see the teacher, but two-way audio, and the teacher can hear the students but cannot see the students. It's teaching students in a single class but at multiple sites. That it is an easy technology to use, and we're trying to give them hands-on experience in teaching over a simulated system.
We very much believe that the heart and soul of what we're about is teachers and students and that interaction. And the goal is not to replace teachers. In fact, we have found with our system that we've had more need for more teachers because of increased demand for some of the courses that we've offered. We don't even videotape our classes because, again, we feel that the strength is that live interaction. There's something, the way our system is designed, that we want to keep that attention central between teacher and student, and that's a live interactive experience. But we still need, at the very beginning, to help them understand both the benefits and the trade-offs or the disadvantages. We think that's important. We don't just go in there and say, well, it's just going to be like any old class you've ever had. But we do think that with a very positive attitude by the teacher and a real caring attitude by the teacher, if that's conveyed to those students and they know the advantages and disadvantages, they can very easily adapt and learn. And everything that we've done as far as the research indicates that the learning outcomes, in other words, how students do, is equal to the traditional classroom.
You talk about cost. One has to consider the type of technology that you're using. In other words, the type of technology that will deliver the signal from our origination site to our distant site. Currently, we're talking about not only the various technologies that we're talking about would include direct copper wire cable, certainly microwave, that's a common technology that is used, ITFS television or instructional television fixed service, and certainly one of the latest technologies that we're talking about using that is a very, very effective and efficient technology for delivery of electronic signals is fiber optics. Now, there is one additional system which is rather costly, and that's satellite telecommunications. Now, we in Iowa see satellite telecommunications primarily for communications outside the state of Iowa as opposed to internal communications within the state. It is an alternative delivery system. It gives them options. And there's certainly something very attractive about not having to travel or fly and waste that time, but you could use it more productively here on campus. So I think that the technology will be used when we have a need to use, when we have a need that can best be met by that particular technology.
Thanks very much, Bob. We're about to lose our satellite feed from New Mexico with Tom Sears. Tom, we'd just like to take a moment to thank you again for being with us.
Roger, we wish you buena suerte, good luck from the land of enchantment in the completion of your statewide television project.
Thanks very much, Tom, and we'll see you on the 17th of July. Now, Dave Bunting, from Kirkwood is with us. And Dave, you are part of that UNI system. We saw a little bit of you in that, but you have your own video. Tell us quickly what that's about.
Well, when I think of interactive television and I think of various types of technology, I think about the people that we serve. And this videotape is going to show the many people who are a part of our system and how they're benefited by interactive television. In the next few minutes, we are going to take you on a journey to show you what the Kirkwood Telecommunications System is all about. Kirkwood is a comprehensive community college. We serve people in 7 counties that goes 100 miles from north to south and about 80 miles from east to west. In the mid-1970s, we realized that many of our students who wanted to take classes with us could not because of the barrier of time and distance. That's why the Kirkwood Telecommunications System, or KTS, was implemented. We began in 1980 by building our first phase of this interactive television system. Today, our system comprises a variety of delivery systems within the KTS concept, and a variety of programs and services are delivered over 70 hours a week. So let's meet some of these important people who make this whole system work.
I enjoyed the classes over the system. I always felt like the teachers were always available for my help if I needed them, and it was a very convenient way for me to get my education.
As a mother and a homemaker, I could not make it to Cedar Rapids for classes, and it was very convenient for me to be able to come to Williamsburg and get the same classes and the same attention and the same instructor as the people in Cedar Rapids were getting. I could not find time to take classes for a 4-year degree. My goal was to be able to teach preschool students and to be able to work with them. I didn't feel that a 4-year degree was necessary, and I did not have time or the money or basically the energy to do a 4-year program. The instruction and the instructors are as personable to the people on the system as if you were sitting in the classroom with them right in front of you.
Interactive television learning expands the possibilities for the institution, for the student, and for the instructor. The institution is broadened because it reaches more students, people who can take advantage of its services, and also because it broadens its services when it comes in contact with students who have other needs. The student, of course, gains an education, has opportunities to take classes that they would not normally have because of difficulties with commuting time and scheduling child care, working around job schedules. The instructor benefits because the more students you can reach and the more diverse those students are, the greater your own perspectives are and the better teacher you become.
As a Washington County coordinator, part of my position is working with adults returning back to school, and the telecommunication system has become a very important part of that option. With the telecommunication systems, we in Washington County, 60 miles from Kirkwood Community College campus, have the availability of college credit courses with quality teachers from 7:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night.
I think one of the highlights of the telecommunication system is the fact that it makes available to the students right here in Iowa County a chance to be connected with Kirkwood College campus.
The educational system that I chose, Kirkwood, made going to school much more convenient for me and less expensive.
Teaching by television is an important medium today. There are a lot of classes that otherwise would not be taught, a lot of subjects that would not be learned if we did not have this means. It might be thought to be an impersonal method of teaching, but with the dual audio television teaching, it is not impersonal.
It's a different learning experience than having a teacher right in front of you. You have to pay more attention by taking it over the interface. You have to stay kept up in your work if you want to have a good grade and be able to learn. And also you get the experience of meeting other students in other schools when we have that opportunity at Kirkwood.
We're in a rural district, and we could not obviously afford to have hired a teacher to teach the 15 or 20 students that have taken those courses over the years. but by having the instructional TV network available in our district, we've been able to provide this opportunity for our students.
Interactive television provides an opportunity for teachers to stay current within their own professional areas.
Teaching on an interactive system is primarily teaching. The hardware is not in the way at all. I think it makes you a better teacher.
Thanks very much. I'd like to remind you to call in your questions for our panelists. We'll be answering questions in the last part of the program, another 15 minutes or so. Again, that number is 1-800-747-5505. Now, our next presenter is Dr. Judy Richardson, Supervisor of Vocational Education and Coordinator of Technology for the Des Moines Public Schools. Judy, I had a chance to see a little bit of you on videotape a couple of days ago at a technology conference. That's quite a system, and it seems to be working very well. I bet you're excited about it.
We are really excited about it. We're into our second year of the field test of this interactive fiber optic system. The tape you're going to see will let you get a peek at the teachers and the students who have been participating in this field test with it, and we hope you'll enjoy it.
And we'll look at that tape right now and see what's happening in Des Moines.
Approached about 2 years ago by U.S. West to participate in a field test of the fiber optic system, which would allow us to connect with fiber the Central Campus, our resource center, to our 5 comprehensive high schools. After we examined our options, we made an agreement with U.S. West, and for the past 2 years we've been doing some experimentation with the system. This fall, we began to offer for the first time direct instruction on the system. We have a class in Japanese, which we teach to a neighboring district, Urbandale, and we have a class that we share between 2 other high schools in beginning Latin. We've been working this year to develop better equipment on our end. We've been working with the U.S. West to improve their end of the technology, and it's been a very exciting and sometimes frustrating but profitable 2 years.
It's not a lecture style class. If I teach just by telling them what to do or just keep talking 1 hour, they will probably get bored of it because there's no human contact involved in it. But like this, if the language classes by nature need more communication. So for the language class like mine, it's working very well.
Teachers have been telling us that it's not the best educational environment to combine classes, putting 2 or 3 levels of a foreign language in one class. The system allows us to group those students into classes that will allow them to be getting 50 minutes of instruction at the level where they should be getting it.
Roosevelt has learned its Latin. You can tell that by listening to those people recite. They've had to do so much of it on their own, they've probably had to work harder than the students would have over here. It's probably just as effective, it's just not nearly as efficient.
If I wanted Latin, I would have had to have went to, I think, Lincoln or Central Campus. And the only reason I would have wanted to go to Central Campus was for Latin, and I didn't want to have to leave Roosevelt. So they said that if we took Latin, we'd have the choice of taking it on this or there'd be no Latin. And so I decided this was worth a try.
I think that obviously it has the potential to make us a better school because it expands the offerings that we can give our young people. I think the true test of an outstanding high school is a school that can provide a broad-based group of courses that youngsters may opt to become familiar with. And the fact that we would not be able to offer some of the foreign languages is to our advantage. Obviously, that's been the area of concentration currently, is in the foreign languages, but I think it can be expanded in other areas as we become familiar with this.
Yeah, it's an effective class, and because it gives me a chance to work on my own more than I would if a teacher was in the room.
Okay, it's interesting, first of all. being able to see, and I feel it keeps you on task because you have actually two teachers that are watching you. It's more of like having a student teacher because there's always somebody to watch you and keep you on task, whether it's the teacher on the other side of the city or if it's the teacher that's in the room.
Because I could see where it would be very easy for the students to go off on their own tangent and not stay on task, because it would be very difficult to control those students from the other end of the broadcast. I don't see it as eliminating jobs. I see it as enabling me as a teacher to reach students who would not otherwise have an opportunity to take this class.
Some students learn very well under the direction of a teacher, under their direct supervision, and other students learn better on their own. And if we can just figure out a way to blend a student's learning style with the instructional style, we'll be successful.
If we're going to use this kind of technology in schools, it must benefit primarily the instructional program, improve the curriculum, expand the curriculum, and enhance it. It's an expensive proposition, and even though there are a lot of other things you can do with it in terms of telecommunications and communications between buildings and schools, the primary benefit must be to the students and the teachers. So that's the main payoff that we're looking for in experimenting with this system. We can make the technology transparent so that a good teacher can teach students using the technology and not know it's there.
And we're looking forward to great things from that Des Moines system. Again, in its second year of testing, and it'll be up and running full-time very soon. Gary Fettern is with us. Gary is director of the Television Center for Iowa Lakes Community College. And Gary, give us a little preview, if you would, of the Iowa Lakes 5-county program.
Basically, what we're attempting to do is serve a rural population. And the tape you're about to see, we would just like to share with you some of the student opinions and faculty opinions of our system.
Very good. And let's take a look at that now, if we may. Take a look at what's happening up in that part of Iowa.
Serves the rural population that is up in our 5-county area. We wanted to bring classes and educational opportunities to those small communities like Lake Park and Harris Lake Park schools, North Kossuth County schools in Sway City and the like, that normally would not have an opportunity for courses such as high school French, high school algebra, high school calculus, college courses for high school and the people out in the community.
The greatest accomplishment of the television system, I think, is to do what we're supposed to do in the first place. This is a community college, and we serve a community which is a very large sense of 5 or more counties, and we can reach those people that we wouldn't have been able to reach before.
I'm taking a French 2 TV course, and I really like it because it gives me an advantage to take a foreign language that wouldn't have been available to me if it wasn't for the TV classes.
I believe the system is trying to accomplish bringing a variety of classes to students that ordinarily would not be able to have these classes or situations in their own school.
It's a good experience because it's different than being in a regular classroom. You have to be on your toes more and be ready for everything more, so it helps.
The interactive TV system here is trying to bring a rich and varied educational experience to students who, up until this point, have not had the opportunity to expand their horizons. I try to do several things when I teach on television. First of all, I want to give the students a survival level knowledge, speaking knowledge of the French language. Second of all, I want to communicate caring. I want to be able to span the physical distance with professional caring. And third of all, I want to be able to see the students develop a sense of themselves.
Yes, I definitely think that learning is taking place. I can compare the scores of students in these remote areas with the students that are in my own classroom at this site, and they do very well in comparison. My camera person is a very, very important entity of the class. I've been very fortunate to have 2 excellent camera persons the last 2 years, but I think you need to build a bond between your camera person and yourself. And by this time, at this point in the year, Jill knows when I'm going to be moving to the right or to the left. She knows when to make the picture bigger, when to zero in on me, and so forth. So there's a communication of just maybe by a little hand gesture or a word that I can communicate with my camera person, and that's very definitely an important factor.
Well, basically, you know, I've heard it said that there's no difference between teaching live and on television, and that's simply not true. There are a few things you have to do different. One is be prepared. You have to prepare everything about a week in advance, which is at best like living in a little bit of a time warp, thinking a week in advance. Because there's one thing you absolutely couldn't do on television, and that is wing it. You have to know what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So I do have a leg up on perhaps other subjects, teaching art appreciation, being very visual. The trick is to use them a lot, visual aids, because we're in a media. And that's real simple.
Oui, j'adore très beaucoup les vacances.
Eh bien, quand est-ce que les vacances commencent?
I think it's the same as if she was in the room, except maybe even a little better because I can go at my own speed. I can look back in the book and see what she just said and how you write it, and it just gives me an advantage, I think.
We want the teachers to believe, as well as the students, that learning is taking place. We do that through constant communication between us in the TV center, the teachers, and the students in a non-classroom setting by getting them together as often as possible, and through thorough testing. We believe, through in-servicing our teachers and working very closely with our teachers, that education does take place on distant learning systems.
Thanks very much, Gary. We remind you that you still have time to call us with a question. Again, our number, as it appears, 1-800-747-5505. We have operators waiting to take your call and write that question down, and we'll be answering it in just a little bit. Lots of exciting uses of technology all across the state of Iowa. Of course, we like to think that much of that is happening here at Iowa State University. Dr. Kathleen Steinhardt is with us. She's Manager of Credit Programs for the Office of Continuing Education here at Iowa State University. And Kathleen, we're doing some really exciting things in many areas, including in my end, the Cooperative Extension Service. Tell us a little bit about it quick.
Actually, Iowa State uses three forms of telecommunications, Roger: audio teleconferencing, video cassette, and satellite television. But we've chosen to focus this film clip on the university's use of satellite.
Very good. Let's take a look at that right now, if we may, find out what's happening at Iowa State.
Iowa State University now has its statewide instructional satellite network up and running. Our uplink facility is located here in Ames on campus at the WOI television headquarters. And our downlink sites, of which there are now over 80, are located in ISU extension offices across the state. We call this new system the Iowa State Telecommunications Network, and we use it to deliver credit coursework, continuing education programming, and cooperative extension activities to a number of constituencies across Iowa and occasionally beyond the borders of Iowa. Now let's hear from the people involved in the programming as to how this all really works.
Satellite is simply a delivery system that joins the teacher or the expert to the learner or the recipient. At Iowa State University, it started in the summer of 1985 when they constructed their C-band satellite uplink. In January of 1986, Iowa State did their first co-op extension program. Over 40 programs and nearly 100 hours of programming have followed since then for co-op extension program efforts. In addition to teleconferences, credit and non-credit courses, we've had a lot of other things like research. That hasn't been overlooked either. Good educational use demands planning to make the learner interact with rather than remaining a passive viewer. There's a limit to the client distance information, and the viewer must be highly motivated. The program demands print support materials for later review, and there must be an opportunity for some sort of interaction. We usually provide that with telephone lines back to campus. Another alternative would be knowledgeable local facilitators at each downlink site to conduct smaller educational programs focused on local concerns. Television can be a powerful, up-close emotional medium, or it can be passive and boring. The choice is up to you as the originator.
As Manager of Conference Services for the Office of Continuing Education, my role is to work with people who are interested in using the Iowa State Telecommunications Network to produce satellite video conferences. When people have an idea to use the system, they contact me, we schedule a meeting. In essence, when somebody walks through the door, what my role is to assist them in building a budget, to assist them in scheduling the sites using the Iowa State Telecommunications Network, to assist them in the development of the publications they might want to use for that particular video conference, and to assist them in whatever kinds of statewide or local publicity they have in mind. Essentially, this is a real opportunity for people to take advantage of this kind of technology to reach large numbers of people inexpensively. And I think it's one thing that we certainly would encourage more people to take advantage of, knowing that Iowa State has become the leader in satellite technology.
College of Agriculture has been involved with TV satellite courses for the last 4 years. We've had an excellent experience, and I think it has great potential for the future. Actually, we've had 4 credit courses offered throughout the state, and 1 course that's offered regionally, and then we've also had an international symposium, which was for non-credit. We've had 485 persons involved in off-campus credit courses through our television system. More than that, it's important that professors learn to teach with television, and in this series of classes, we've had 40 professors actually involved in teaching 1 or more classes. We know that the satellite system has great potential for off-campus credit courses, and we also know that it must be to a dispersed audience and to a large audience. The College of Agriculture is fortunate in having audiences that are very receptive to television delivery systems.
We're still learning here at Iowa State about the best ways to use satellite communications. We learn especially from our participants. So after you've had the opportunity to participate in an Iowa State University Telecommunications Network event like this conference today, we'd like to hear from you.
And we'd like to tell you that we learn about doing teleconferences during teleconferences too. Each one is a new experience for us, and it's an exciting way to be involved in distance learning. We'd like to let the folks in Des Moines participate again at Iowa Public Television. Tim Berry or whoever is on site, let's find out if there's a question there.
I'm still here, Roger. You've given us a half a dozen programs with which we could have talked for hours on. All of those were, as you said, extremely interesting and exciting. We have with us here Matt Maurer. Matt and I were just chatting here. Matt, give us just a little bit of rundown about what brought you to the conference today, just so that we can kind of put a human face on who we're talking to here.
I work for Communications Data Services here in Des Moines, and I'm interested in how this network relates to the business community.
Yeah, excellent question. Roger, could we get somebody up there to talk about that for us?
Yes, we certainly can, and I think we'll ask Linda to respond to that at least first. I think that's who it's directed to.
Business and industry services, customized training programs are typically being done by many of the educational institutions for specifically business and industry. The University of Iowa, for example, currently has a link to Rockwell Collins in Cedar Rapids where they're offering a computer science class, and we continue to believe that there will be more and more programs made available for business and industry through the educational institutions.
Very good. Thanks very much, Linda. Let's take just a brief moment now to hear from another representative of Iowa State University, someone who's been very important to us, and he has some comments and some thoughts about what's happening in telecommunications.
Teacher education in the College of Education at Iowa State University includes considerable experience for pre-service teachers in the effective use of the technologies of instruction, including interactive television. Today's College of Education students will teach long into the 21st century, and we believe that the effective use of technology must be a competency possessed by them. We also are committed to the need to evaluate and verify the effectiveness of interactive television. One of several research agendas of our faculty and graduate students is the complete analysis of all components of television when this medium is used to deliver courses for credit. We would hope your input during this teleconference will assist us in identifying concerns and problem areas that you feel require investigation before interactive television is widely used. Interactive television is a tool becoming increasingly more available to us. We must use it effectively.
Thank you very much, sir. And we'd like to spend the rest of our time answering questions. I think we're going to try a live question off the telephone. Let's see if we have that question now.
Yes, Roger?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, this is Jim Sayers calling from Humboldt. Yes. And my question this morning is about county extension offices. Here in Humboldt, we obtain a lot of good educational programs all the time through our county extension office. And I was wondering if you foresee in the future that we might have fiber optics links connected to the county extension offices in the state.
Okay, the question...
Maybe this could be a question for Kathleen.
Ah, okay, very good. Thanks very much. That call from Humboldt, and we'll see if, first of all, Kathleen has some thoughts on that. A fiber optic system connecting the extension offices, say, with the Iowa system. We'll let you answer, and then perhaps we can go to Linda to talk a little bit more about that.
I think that's a very good question. The question's probably going to be better than my answer. Anything's a possibility, and I think that may very well be something that we'll see in the future. For the immediate future, I think Iowa State's going to focus on the existing downlink system, and as Iowa Public Television's system gets up and running, we'll be looking at a number of options for interconnects.
Okay, very good. I was talking just a bit about that with Linda Schatz just a little bit ago. If you have to reach a lot of people all over the state, perhaps it's best to do satellite uplinks. For the individual lessons, perhaps the fiber link works better.
Right, the beauty of the Iowa Educational Telecommunications Network is that it uses multiple technologies for whatever the need might be. In the case where you're going to many sites, satellite may still be the best technology to use. If you're connecting two towns 20 miles apart with 3 students, for example, at each location, the fiber system is probably the most effective system to use for that kind of activity.
Okay, Linda, thanks very much. I think we have another call, a live caller. Let's find out who it is. Yes?
Whether or not the Iowa Education Television Network is going to be used primarily for audio and visual, or will there be a possibility of its use for data transmission and electronic mail and that type of thing?
Okay. Linda, back to you again. The system to be, caller from Sioux Center wants to know the possibility of using the system for data transmission, electronic mail, that sort of thing.
Again, one of the beauties of using fiber optics for both the backbone and what we're calling the telelinks, those two-way video audio links at the outlying sites, is that fiber makes it very easy for us to carry not only the video and the associated audio, but also voice and data signals as well. So data transmissions, either jointly with video programs or separately, can all be used using the fiber optic system.
Okay. Let's get a question that was called in earlier. Back in the late 60s, instructional television almost disappeared. Too many TV teachers were perhaps uninspired, and we really didn't use the unique capabilities of the video medium. This for Dave Bunting, who's next to me here. What are we doing better now? How can we be sure that we don't repeat the mistakes we were making 20 years ago?
If I could underline maybe one word that would really make the difference, it would be interaction. And again, from my background and experience, the earlier forms of teaching by television, it was pretty much one way. And I think all the systems that you've experienced this morning really have underlined that word interaction. We know that good teaching, whether it be in a traditional classroom or over a system, does demand a lot of interaction between those students, their fellow students, and also with that instructor. So I think that's the key to it.
Okay, Dave, thanks very much. Let's go to Des Moines for another question.
Yes, Roger. I think we found out here, as from watching today, that we have much of the situations that we're dealing with is the balance between theory and application. And I think we got a real nuts and bolts question here. Go right ahead.
Well, the question, and this is Bill Schoenberger, I'm with the Des Moines Public Schools. The question has to do with funding. It's been mentioned that the state of Iowa is going to put money into this, but what is expected from the local school districts in terms of how much money do they have to provide, and will there be any additional assistance from the school, from the state?
Okay, thanks very much. Linda, lots of questions for you regarding the system, and we've had several of those from the phone. Where is funding coming from? What are the costs to participating districts? That sort of thing.
Currently, we're looking for total system costs from a request for proposal, which will be, again, sent out shortly. At that time, we'll have specific costs. In the meantime, we're very pleased that the Iowa legislature in this session did appropriate a standing limited appropriation over the next 5 years of $10 million per year for the system. That money is to be used for the backbone system and also on an 80-20 match for the local systems that Bill was asking about.
Okay, very good. Question for Dr. Judy Richardson. One of our callers says that it seems to me that high-level administrative support is critical for an instructional telecommunications system to be successful on a continuing basis. How did you obtain that commitment with your senior administrators, and how do you keep that support going?
That's a very good question. We entered the field test under the leadership of Dr. William Anderson, who was a very visionary leader. As we began to get involved in the system, many of the people in the district could see the potential of what was happening, and so we continue to keep them informed and continue to keep the people who are involved in the field test excited about the system. But it's very true, without an identified need and without the support of your top-level administration, it's very difficult to get this kind of field test and this kind of commitment from the people that you're working with.
Thanks very much, Judy. It'll be very interesting to see what this whole thing looks like in about 2 years. Things go so rapidly and things change so quickly, and we get things in place and really up and running, and we'll see what happens. We have a caller on the phone. And your name and question, if you would, please.
Yes.
Yes, what is the question, please?
Go ahead, please.
The Iowa legislature debated the appropriateness of using telecommunications with the state standards. I'm curious as to what research is out there comparing two-way interactive telecommunication systems, both audio and visual, with those that are two-way audio but only one-way visual. Thank you.
Okay, that relates really to, say, telecommunications on the fiber optic system versus satellite uplinks. Who would like to address that? Any thoughts on any research that's been done? Gary, do you have any thoughts on that thus far? Maybe that's not fair to put that to you, but I will anyway.
On the difference between the two-way and the two-way and one-way audio. Well, there's research, I'm sure. We've been keeping records, accurate records. I know Kirkwood Community College has been keeping records. We believe our system is two-way video, one-way audio. We believe that the contact is taking place, the communications network is being met with the student and the teacher. And the research that we have been keeping shows that learning is taking place in the distant sites. But right now there isn't a lot that I know of that's on two-way.
Okay, very good. And I know that a number of states are involved in teleconferencing, video conferencing by satellite. There have been some answers, I know, as to whether it's effective or not. But I think within the next year or so, I think there'll be additional answers to that. Let's go to Des Moines for a couple of questions. Tim?
Yes, Roger. We all use the word teleconferencing and telecommunications, but I think everybody is aware that there's the public sector, the government sector, the economic, educational sector. Your question, sir, I think relates to how that balances in.
Yes, I wanted to know how the private businesses would go about contracting for programs.
Okay, again, a question about private businesses. And let's see if we can answer that here in the studio. Linda?
Some of the issues that keep coming up as we move forward with this activity are issues that we need to take back to the Narrowcast Advisory Committee, which is that group of representative users. So I'm not sure I can answer his question directly at this point in time, but it is something that we will continue to consider as we move forward with all of the details related to the system.
Okay, Linda, This is such a new situation that it'll just take a while to shake out. Let's go back to Des Moines for another question. Tim?
Yeah, Roger, I'd like to maybe pose a question to Dr. Judy Richardson, who's up there on your panel. I know Judy is involved in the delivery systems, but I also know that she, in answering that question, is also actively involved in the production of some of those programmings. I know because she asked me to be on one of the programs for reading books to some of the kids. I was wondering now, Judy, how difficult is it to produce some local television?
I don't think I caught the...
Oh, how difficult is it to produce, Judy?
Well, we don't really consider ourselves producing programs, Tim. We consider ourselves delivering instruction. And so we try to, although there's a lot of planning involved, we try to make the teacher feel that they're in a classroom teaching a class as opposed to being a talent and part of a production like I feel right now, a little bit different.
Okay, it's sort of being the difference between the classroom and being really part of the show. Let's ask a question that came in earlier from one of our viewers, this for Dr. Steinhardt. Kathleen, someone once said that in order to make a silk purse from a sow's ear, you have to start with a silk sow in order to be successful with televised instruction. Should we be using the people who are our best teachers in the conventional classroom, or can we train another classroom teacher to be a good TV teacher? What should we be doing?
I think the answer to that is yes. Start with your best teachers. Telecommunications will magnify any flaws in a person's communication or teaching style. So start with your strongest people. But that does not to eliminate any teacher from teaching well through telecommunications with some training. In fact, one of the best results we've seen with Iowa State faculty in using telecommunications is once they've been trained and work in an instructional telecommunications setting, their regular classroom instruction becomes better because it forces you to really fine-tune your techniques and the way you communicate with your students.
Okay, I'm going to ask Bob Hardman to interact with that a little bit too. In situations at your shop, do you see the need to use your very best classroom instructors, or again, is there some training that can be done?
Well, we'd like to begin, I think, with our best teachers and then prepare them to use the technology. I think Kathleen is absolutely right. I think that it takes really very little training to use the technology. And what we're dealing with is classroom teaching, and we're simply using the technology to deliver that classroom instruction. And it's amazing how quickly good teachers learn how to use the technology. It is not difficult.
And of course, that's part of what's happening this summer at Iowa State University. Beginning the 17th of July, the course that you can become involved in. There is some information in your packet about that at your local viewing sites, by the way. Take a look at that and see if you would like to become involved with that. Now, let's have some comments from someone else who's very concerned about telecommunications.
Iowa educators have traditionally been leaders in the application and use of new instructional technologies. Recently, a number of schools and colleges in Iowa have begun to use interactive television as a way to share courses and other learning experiences, and the state has begun the development of a comprehensive telecommunication plan that will eventually link all schools in Iowa. We in the Department of Education feel that interactive television technology, if used properly, has the potential to help Iowa educators continue the tradition of excellent educational opportunities for our children, youth, and adult learners. Naturally, any new procedure for teaching, including the technologies of distance education, require a thoughtful analysis before widespread utilization. We believe that the educators of Iowa can assist us in identifying the areas of greatest potential for interactive television. Your input during this teleconference will assist in the identification of procedures that will ensure that Iowa schools remain the best in the nation.
Thank you. We pre-taped some questions also for this program, and we'd like to present one of those right now.
The question I have related to technology is what effect do you think it has on the jobs that teachers will have in the future? Will it distract from jobs? Will we be eliminating teachers? Will we be going to larger class size? what effect will it have?
Excellent question, and I think Dave Bunting, first of all, would like to respond to that. Dave?
We just experienced a rather interesting phenomenon at our institution with some of our high school classes, and I think it's very fitting to that particular question. About 4 years ago, we had a drive for additional foreign language students, so we started offering Spanish courses. And like anybody will tell you with interactive television, it begins with very, very good teachers who want to teach by this delivery system. The enrollments over these last 4 years have continued to grow so much that this year, 3 of the schools now have sufficient enrollments to hire teachers. So to give you a very simple answer, I think it does sometimes create jobs as opposed to eliminate them.
Okay, Dave, thanks very much. Let's go to Tim Berry again for another question from Des Moines. Tim?
Thank you, Roger. We're down here. I'm always impressed with the way that instantaneous communication over landlines or telephones or satellites really moves us around. Before we get started here, let's put a human face on some of the folks who are down here. Tell us a little bit about who you are and the organization that you're with.
Okay, I'm Sandy Dixon, and I work with the State Library, which is part of state government, Iowa State Government. We use an interactive audio-only system to deliver a couple of library management classes. And the comments we hear from students is, I wish we could see the teacher, and then the other comment we hear is, I wish we didn't have to drive so far, because there are only 22 sites in the state where they can go. So I guess my question is for Linda Schatz, how soon can we start using this statewide system?
Where's the sign-up sheet, Linda?
Linda?
I think tomorrow would be the good answer. I think in terms of a realistic answer, we're probably looking at someplace a couple of years down the road. We know that most of the vendors responding to our request for information and proposals several months ago indicated a 24 to 28 month build cycle once the money was available for the backbone and telelinks. So we're hoping maybe in 2 to 3 years that the system would be up and totally operational.
Thanks very much, Linda. We'll take one more call live off the phone, and let's see who is calling and where they're from.
Yes, this is David Feil. I'm Associate Director of Continuing Education at Iowa Wesleyan College, and I have 2 questions. Number 1, how do the independent colleges and universities across Iowa fit into the picture? And the second question is regarding specific instructional techniques. As a teacher, how are such things as giving examinations, distributing papers, and other materials, how is that handled?
Okay, thanks very much for your question. First of all, independent colleges. Linda, can you answer that, or can someone else?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear his question.
How can independent colleges be involved in the system?
The independent colleges, as well as all of the educational sectors, are very much a part of the system. I think it's probably best if the people work with their community colleges in the area, since they've been identified as the lead agencies. We are currently identifying each of the sites that will be on the system, and I would suggest that you talk to the local community college in your area.
Okay, very good. And then what about giving tests? Can anybody answer that? Gary, would you like to respond to that?
8 out of 10 times I'm yelled at. It's by the faculty wondering where their tests are or why they aren't back yet. Yeah. Interactive television requires one thing of a teacher, and that's to plan ahead. A lot of teachers get very nervous with that. We require tests to be sent out approximately a week ahead of time. So they have to plan very, very far ahead. They know when they're going to give the test, and then they're administered through proctors, et cetera, and sent back. So it is difficult in that respect. It may take 2 or 3 days to get them back, but I don't think it's really taken away from any classes that I'm aware of.
Okay, very good. Well, distance learning is something that all of us who are involved in education at what other organization or whatever level will be very, very much involved with, it looks like, in the future. We have one additional comment from another person who is very much involved with telecommunications.
Iowa State University has a long history of using television technology in education. In the 1950s, when Iowa State's WOI-TV began broadcasting, one of its primary purposes was to provide high-quality educational programming to the citizens of Iowa. Then, as now, Iowa State feels that the use of television to deliver courses and conferences throughout the state is a natural extension of our land-grant mission to serve our state's citizenry. This newest technology, interactive television, provides tremendous opportunities for educators. Through teleconferences such as this, Iowa State seeks your input as to how we can serve your needs more effectively.
And if you haven't been involved in distance learning up to now, we hope that you can in the very near future. We're out of time, and we thank you very, very much for being part of this, and I'd like to thank our panel, Bob Hardman, Gary Feddern, Dr. Kathleen Steinhardt, Dave Bunting, Dr. Judy Richardson, and Linda Schatz. Of course, we are able to do this because you're there watching, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you again. I'm Roger Brown from Iowa State University.